Yes, people, welcome back to United View. Welcome back to a solo episode of What the Devil in Me. I'm Dylan, I'm your host today, and I've had a busy week. I'm going to be real with you guys. My week's been full on, and so I've had to do a big catch-up this morning, of all the Manchester United news. Obviously, we had the game against Everton, and I feel like everyone's ended up feeling the same about this game against Everton, isn't it? Like, we all feel like it was a rough game. We feel like United didn't play well. It felt like there was a lack of urgency. They got a red card, sending off. Then they scored, and it felt like only when they scored it. It reminded me of like Erik ten Hag's final couple months in the second season, in that we'd start the game in a really lethargic way where we'd not quite be at the races. Then suddenly we'd go a goal down, and it's like the players then went, oh, hold on, we're meant to be playing football right now, aren't we? Like, it just felt like the players were... I want to give them a big X for that one. I've got this. I was at a YouTube set the other day, and it was a voting game, and I stole this, so I've decided it's my new thing now. Anytime I see a bad opinion, or hear a bad opinion, that red button's getting hit. But that game was just rough. But since then, obviously, there's been some news coming out about January targets, summer targets, and I want to go through, and I want to do it with you guys. I want to go through this report that we've made a 7-player midfield target list for the summer. So we'll start off by talking, obviously, about the 7 names. So the 7 names, reveal them all at once, is obviously Elliot Anderson from Nottingham Forest, Adam Wharton from Crystal Palace, Carlos Baleba from Brighton, João Gomez from Wolves, and Andre, also from Wolves, Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart, and Conor Gallagher from Atletico Madrid. So I don't know how you guys feel about some of those signings, but for me, there is a clear winner in this. I feel like more than anything, it's Elliot Anderson that we need to be going for. There's a lot of talk, obviously, about Carlos Baleba. We were so in for him last summer. We wanted to accelerate that move if the price was right. Brian said 100. We were thinking more about 55, 60, 65 million pounds. So we walked away, but secured the deal, I guess, with the personal terms with Baleba, didn't we? But Baleba's performances this season, I could understand a slow start to the season because there was so much talk around him. There was going to be so many eyes on him. And Fabian Hertzler, the Brighton manager, even admitted at one point early on, he was like, yes, these... the links to United and all of that affected him. They said, when something like that happens, especially to a player who's 21 years old in the Premier League, coming off a great season, and all the eyes are going to be on him for the second season because all the big clubs are circling, sometimes it can affect you. And I didn't necessarily see that as too much of a red flag to start with. I wasn't thinking, does this show that he doesn't have the mentality to be Manchester United's starting defensive midfielder? Because obviously the only one defensive midfielders who you'd say have been incredibly successful at United in the last couple of years has been Casemiro's first season at under Ten Hag. And then also, you'd say maybe like 2025 Casemiro has been good as well. And the other one was Nemanja Matic. These guys are like proven winners, and they're the ones who've succeeded, whereas there are others, plenty have come through. Scott McTominay being misprofiled, Fred and co, and all these other defensive midfielders who have come through and not quite done the business because they might not have the right head screwed on correctly to manage being Manchester United's number 6. Like, if you think back to like the old, there's obviously all the talk about the mentality monster stuff, but you've got players like Roy Keane, Paul Scholes that are playing as like the number 6s and number 8s in these midfield. Even Bruno Fernandes playing as a 6, 8, and a 10. These are the guys with the right mentality. But I wasn't too fussed about Baleba's start to the season to start with, but I do think the continued bad performances, both for country and for club, and being hooked 45 minutes a lot, it has to a certain extent made me feel like maybe there is something there. Obviously, he had an amazing season last season, but I feel like with the way Elliot Anderson, for example, has hit the ground running, and even with Nottingham Forest being so poor, they're on their 3rd manager of the season already, he's been good throughout all of it. I've got tweets back in like the beginning of 2024, end of 2023. Like, I remember these tweets where I was basically just talking about Elliot Anderson going, this guy's mint. This kid is so damn good at football. And we saw it when we played Forest, when we drew 2-2 at the City ground. He basically was doing the job that we ask of Casemiro. The Casemiro only seems to be able to do for us well, but for 70 minutes. Like, Casemiro seems like he keeps getting hooked at like 70 minutes. But obviously Casemiro is 33. Elliot Anderson is 10 years younger than him. And I do think Elliot Anderson is the number 1 out of this list of 7 midfield players who is that guy to replace Casemiro. But that's not to say that, for example, Adam Wharton, the other player on that list, another one of the players on that list, is not also a fantastic young player. And a fantastic player who, if he came into United midfield, would probably be better over the course of a season, over the course of 60 games, over the course of the next 5 years for us than what we've got right now. I understand we were talking about actually Adam Wharton yesterday. I don't know if any of you were watching the DR Sports Goals show that we did yesterday, obviously looking at all the Champions League games yesterday, where we had a big conversation about Adam Wharton. We were talking about, where is his level? Because I did say that his level is he's good enough to end up at a club like Real Madrid. Right, I'm not necessarily saying, starting midfield every single week, but he is good enough in his career. He's like 21 now, I believe. I think he's 21, either 22 years old. To when he's 26, 27, 28, to be like one of the best, like within the groups of like best midfielders in the world. That's his potential. That's his peak. That's his ceiling. Whereas Clinton, the Newcastle fan, was basically saying he reckons Newcastle is the next step that Wharton has to make. But then you think, is Palace to Newcastle right now even a step up? Like, is it? Because Newcastle are, 14th in the league? And Palace are 5th? Palace are most recent team to win a trophy. They're flying this season, despite the fact they lost Eze, and despite the fact they lost Elise the season before that. But I do think that there's just something about Elliot Anderson over Belieber and over Wharton, for me, that makes him just the best midfielder out of those choices. But the thing is, I really need to sneeze, but it's not coming now. Yeah, I'll do it at some point whenever it comes through. But so they are the clear front three favourites, right? Anderson, Wharton, and Belieber. They are the 180 to 100 million pound midfielders who the club will look to sign. But the thing is, as well, there's a list. The list is almost in two, isn't it? It's Anderson, Wharton, Belieber as like the big midfield signing, right? That they're going to want. Like that's like the 70, 80, 100 million pound player where they're like, bang, we need to future-proof this midfield. And then there's a second half of this list, which is João Gomez from Wolves, Andre also from Wolves, Stiller from Stuttgart, and Conor Gallagher from Atleti. So if any of you are just joining us, what we're talking about at the moment is ESPN have released Manchester United's 7-player midfield target list, which is Wharton, Belieber, Anderson, Gomez, Andre, Stiller, and Gallagher. So I feel like United are going to sign one of Anderson, Wharton, or Belieber, and I think it'll only be one of those three, which I would want to be Elliot Anderson. But then the second half is João Gomez, Andre, Stiller, and Gallagher. I feel like there's going to be a second... Like, there'll be a second signing, especially if Casemiro doesn't stay on, or we sell Ugarte or something, that will come in alongside that. And I don't know who you think. João Gomez, Andre, Angelo Stiller, Conor Gallagher. I do want to know, who would you guys want out of those four, assuming we then get one of those big three midfielders? Who do you want to come in at second? Because João Gomez, I didn't know too much about him a few weeks ago, I will admit. Then the links came up, so I started watching a bit of football about him. Just like a bit of his football and everything. And I do think he's a good option. But at the 45, 50 million pounds that Wolves seem to want, like, is he only 10 million less than Cunha, for example? Like, I don't like, obviously, because Wolves set the price for Cunha at 62.5. I don't know if that will be the most fantastic option. I don't know if maybe Andre, also from Wolves, could be the cheaper option out of the two. Because I don't know if I want to spend 45, 50 million pounds on a rotation midfielder. Because I don't think whoever comes in alongside, let's say, Anderson, Wharton, or Belieber, they're not going to be first choice, are they? They're going to be a squad player. They're basically going to be maybe replacing what Ugarte is doing at the moment. Obviously, with more games, hopefully, with the Carabao Cup in there, with the back in European football, hopefully, and FA Cup football, there'll be more games to go around. But I feel like spending 45, 50 million pounds on a midfielder like that could be a bit of a waste of funds. Because obviously it would not be the worst thing in the world in terms of funds, but it's just like 50 million quid for a rotation. We did that with Ugarte, and we've seen how that ended up. And then you got Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart. The guy looks fantastic on the ball, but at the same time, he just looks like he could get bullied off it. Like, I don't know if he's got the physicality to stay strong in the Premier League. Because coming from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, I believe, is the hardest translation from like one of the other top 5 leagues to the Premier League. Like, you've got French League, I feel like, is the second strongest league. But in terms of strength and being able to keep the ball at your feet and all of that, I really think it's the easiest to go from France to England because it's the other league that creates the most physically capable players, not necessarily quality-wise, but at least physically-wise. And then you've got the Serie A, which is kind of slower and more deliberate, but is very technical. And I feel like I don't know how often we see Serie A to Premier League. I can't think of a whole host of major signings in the recent years that do so well. And if I am not thinking about someone, please do let me know. But like the technical aspect of the Serie A can kind of hold you down, like, and keep you at least doing well in the Premier League potentially from the get-go. La Liga is the same, obviously. Like La Liga is a bit quicker than Serie A, but very technical, very quick, very ball-first league, especially at the big clubs. So that would be, again, if you're fantastic with the ball at your feet, maybe it doesn't translate. But with the Bundesliga, there just does seem to be a certain level of like bedding in period often that comes from Germany to England. There are examples otherwise, obviously Kevin De Bruyne going from Wolfsburg to Man City, and Kevin De Bruyne, even to be fair, Kevin De Bruyne started even a few months. It was a bit iffy here and there, but then obviously hit the ball running and he ended up becoming one of the best midfielders in the league. And then you got, like Bundesliga, you've got like people like Xavi Simons, you've got people such as Benjamin Šeško, even Gravenberch, who's now one of Liverpool's one of the best defending midfielders, like so far in the last 18 months, I'd say, or maybe this season, and particularly last season. His first season when he went from Bayern to Liverpool, he struggled. People were like, "Why have you signed him for 40 million quid?" And people 35, 40 million pounds. People were questioning it, but now obviously he's got in there. But I do feel there's Bundesliga to Premier League is hard. So when you go back to the idea of signing Angelo Stiller, not 100% sold on that. But João Gomez would probably, I don't know, I've just said I'm not 100% sure about spending the money on him, but in terms of getting rid of the potential fee that you'd have to pay for João Gomez of the rumoured 45 to 50 million pounds, I understand. So getting rid of that is probably the safest option because, again, it's Premier League proven. Someone who's played in the Premier League for a few years, he's captain of Wolves at the moment, I believe. So, like, coming into United, he'd be able to get the ground running. And in terms of a January signing, it might be him. But beyond that, I'm not sure. So in terms of this list, the 7-player midfield target list, if I was to split it in between one of Anderson, Wharton and Belieber, I'd be going Elliot Anderson. But I would take any of those three still. I know I've said my potential worries about Belieber, but at the end of the day, it's not like he's not a fantastic player. We've seen him at his best and he's brilliant. And maybe it was, if he comes to United, he may be more settled because that might be what's on his mind at the moment. But I would take Elliot Anderson out of all of them because I've been championing Elliot Anderson for a long time. And then out of the other four, if it was to take the other four, it probably would be João Gomez, but I would be iffy on the fee. Anything above 30 to 35, I would feel like we're maybe overcommitting to that because there are other positions that need to be filled, one of which is wing-backs. So the other half of the report, let me just find it, is that Manchester United will look to bolster their options at wing-back next summer alongside their pursuit of a central midfielder. This is so needed, and I feel like the Spurs game and the Everton game, more than anything, have proved that United are in desperate need of wing-backs. I know there are a couple of guys talking in the comments about Ruben Amorim. So Electrician Q3P says, Manchester United manager is a disgrace in football history. He needs to be sacked. He did not even know how to transform a single player. Even when we buy another player, they will play the same way. We have a lot of good players. We all need to transform them, but not with this manager. And JK47 says, we want a new manager. This manager is out of his depth. Unless he gets specialists in each position, the formation is sugar, honey, iced tea, to put it PG. But I kind of understand it. I don't agree with the getting specialists, by the way. We did have that conversation under Erik ten Hag, and I feel like Erik ten Hag was signing more specialist players. But these players, Amorim said it himself, and I agree with Amorim in this aspect, is Amorim has said before that he thinks that the players that he's bought are players that any manager would want anyway. And that's true. Look at how many people were after Bryan Mbeumo in the summer. Obviously, he came to us, he said, well, but Arsenal were in for him. Spurs were in for him. Newcastle were in for him. Like all these Premier League clubs. Arsenal, the club that are best team in the world at the moment, I reckon. They were in for Mbeumo because they wanted him. Arteta loved him. Arteta wanted him. Same with Spurs. Same with Newcastle. I'm sure abroad, if Mbeumo was more open to other options, I'm sure big clubs abroad like Bayern Munich, etc., would probably, Real Madrid, Barcelona, would potentially have been interested in Bryan Mbeumo because he's that good. Matheus Cunha. Another player linked with Arsenal loads. I think his move to Arsenal was pretty close, I believe. That was a genuine conversation to be had. Like, there was certainly movement there. But obviously, once United came in, it was only Man United. The Arsenal one was maybe a year ago or so, or in January. But Cunha, I think absolutely fantastic player. He's brilliant player. Any manager would want him. Benjamin Šeško, yes, not the world's best start to the season. Yes, he's had he's kind of got his knee injury, so he's out until mid-December. But it's not as many big clubs again, like Arsenal. The Arteta was obsessed with the guy. He was thinking, that's my guy. But the scouting department and Gyökeres's willingness to go to Arsenal obviously meant that Gyökeres got the move in the end. But Šeško's been linked with Bayern Munich, Newcastle as well. Again, United, Spurs, Chelsea, all these big clubs, the players in Saint Lemons, he was looked at obviously by us, but then Aston Villa linked with Galatasaray, linked with Manchester City as well when they thought they might not be able to get Donnarumma. The players that Amorim's bought in so far are players that I reckon most managers would want to buy anyway. So I do kind of get the point about specialists, but at the same time, I just feel like that's not as true for Amorim as it has been for previous managers. So I do think even if a manager does get sacked, obviously talking about not know how to transform players, I kind of understand that point, because my view with Amorim is kind of he's a good coach, but potentially too early. So you talk about inexperience there and not being able to transform players. I do think Amorim potentially maybe would have been better for this job in 5-6 years' time. Because the translation from a non-Big Five league to a top Premier League club, we've seen it with Slot, we've seen it with Ten Hag, we've seen it with Amorim, we've seen it elsewhere. It's it doesn't always work, because they have a certain way of playing which worked in the, with no disrespect, smaller leagues, the smaller European leagues. But then once you come to the Premier League, you need to be more flexible. That's why Sir Alex Ferguson survived. That's why Mourinho survived earlier on. That's why Pep Guardiola is one of the best in the world at the moment. Well, probably the best in the world at the moment, potentially one of the best of all time. Actually, not even potentially, he's top 3 easily. Because they adapt. They adapt and they change. Because they adapt. You figure out how to play against Man City. 2 years later, bang, new style of football. New style. That's how these managers survive. And that's why I think Slot's in trouble. Why Ten Hag didn't work out United, because there was only one way. Then he tried to change it. Didn't work for 2 games. Went back to his other way, and it just went downhill from there. And then Ruben Amorim as well. He's saying, I won't change my way. I won't change my way. I won't change all this and that. Potentially just because they're too one-minded at the moment. But Amorim, I do think, Manny says, no new wing-backs. He won't be here in the summer. I don't know about that. I don't think he's getting sacked. Unless something really bad happens, which, as long as things aren't as bad as last season, he won't get sacked. And it would be terrible. So much would have to go wrong for us to end up worse than last season. We'll get more points than last season, most likely. We'll hopefully obviously get further in the FA Cup. There's no European football. Carabao Cup obviously has gone. So I just don't see a world where it happens, because the justification will be we've improved on last season. And so half the point of what we're talking about here is obviously that United are backing Amorim with a further big rebuild, getting rid of players, getting new players. I have a feeling players like Dalot, Ugarte, even Harry Maguire, Casemiro, the ones towards the end of their contracts, these guys, they're on probation, or their probationary period here a little bit. They're trying to, the club, they are being more ruthless. So when they talk about the need for new wing backs, I don't see a world where we don't sign a new left wing back, because Dalot can't hack it at left wing back. I wouldn't mind seeing Luke Shaw tried there, but he might die. Obviously his hamstrings might go again, or his calf might go again, his hips, knees. It could happen. I would like to see it happen. I would like to see us try just to see what happens, because our management of injuries has been so much better. Our injuries have gone massively downhill. The number of injuries we have in the last. Remember Ten Hag? We had 17 injuries at one point. The treatment table was full, so they had to the club had to triage the first team. That was crazy. So maybe Shaw would be better, but. Yes, but we need specialist wing backs. Do we? Our best wing back is Ahmad. He's not a wing back. He's a winger who's got a good defensive work rate. If we went and we signed, I can't think of another. Semenyo. Obviously, we're not going to get Semenyo. Let's say we went and signed a player like him. He is a winger, right? He's a winger. But let's say we went and got someone like him, and then we played him at wing back. Someone such as Semenyo at wing back, left wing back. that would that not just like be someone who would then can play as a winger if we change manager? Like it's almost like the wing back. I think Amorim wants it to be a winger who is also got a good defensive work rate. But then obviously that relies on the three centre-backs being very good one-on-one and the defensive midfield to be able to get up and down, which is the issue with Amorim's system. But like when you think back to when Amorim was at Sporting, like Quenda, he is just a winger who was playing at wing-back. But he was purely a winger. Ahmad is a winger. He's not a full-back, Ahmad. So I think turning wingers into wing-backs and turning full-backs into wing-backs are two very different questions. And with Dorgu, unfortunately for him, I know he played at winger at Lecce, or Lecce, I'm not quite sure how to say it. But at the end of the day, Dorgu is, on the left at least, more of a quintessential fullback because his decision making in the final third isn't fantastic. Dorgu would probably make a pretty good left back. He's strong, he's quick, he's got a half decent tackle on him. He tends to cover well for other players. But in the final third, he can't make a decision. Like we saw it with Denmark against Scotland. There was obviously he scored. There was a moment right at the end when it was still 3-2 to Scotland. Dorgu was running on that left, running literally at the goalpost. And he just didn't make a decision. He just kept running forwards. And then he made his cross too late and it all went wrong. And then Scotland went and scored a fourth. It's Dorgu's decision making. Whereas if you bought a winger to play as wing back, but someone who was half decent at defending at the same time, then it would be different. And I wouldn't class that as specialist. Why no Dumfries? Because Dumfries is a right wing back. And why, like, Ahmad is so good there. So good there. Ahmad's potentially our most important player. Like, if you think about it, our best performances and worst performances have coincided more often with Ahmad's best and worst performances than any other player. Like, potentially, maybe only Bruno Fernandes or Casemiro could have the same kind of thing that you can say. Is that when Ahmad's playing well and he's playing at wing-back, we play really, really well. When Ahmad's not having a great game, so beginning of the season, Ahmad had a really up-and-down start to the season, we played really poorly. So I do think, like, Dumfries, I just don't see it. I would love to see. Wouldn't Ahmad cross better on the left? But why would you want Ahmad at left wing back though? Because I think the best thing about Ahmad being at left wing back, right wing back, is he's left-footed. So because Mbeumo clearly likes, obviously he's left-footed, but Mbeumo's more than capable on his right-hand side. So it's a case of Ahmad can float inside when needed and cut in, and then Mbeumo can stay outside. It's like basically having two right wingers interchanging with each other. This is another thing I said actually after the Everton game. When we're talking about wing backs, Ruben Amorim, obviously playing as wing backs here and there. We're so right hand side. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago. It was under Solskjaer and under Mourinho. We were so left heavy, so left hand side heavy. We had like Sancho, Martial, Rashford, Dan James all loved playing on the left flank. Obviously, Dan James also played on the right. But we had so many players who just played on that left-hand side. We had no one on the right-hand side. Pogba as well, like in the left half space, coming, like pushing up for midfield, number 8, number 10. Kobbie Mainoo as well, even now, like he looks really good when he's playing on the left of midfield. We were so left-heavy, whereas now we're so right-hand side heavy, especially with Šeško out. And Xerxes against Everton was kind of playing centrally but floating a little bit. We're so right-hand side heavy that against Everton, all Everton needed to do was just make sure that they overloaded their left flank, which is our right-hand side, and they stifled a lot of us because then on the right-hand side, our options were Mount, and then Ahmad before Ahmad then went to the left, and Dorgu, and who got replaced by Dalot. Like, our left-hand side suddenly, after being for so many years so heavy, was suddenly non-existent against Everton. It felt like there was nothing coming from that side. Again, I think part of it's decision-making. Obviously, not having Cunha was huge in that game. That was every time Cunha doesn't play. There's been a lot of debate about Cunha. Like, obviously, he's got one goal in 9, 10 appearances now for us. And I get the argument that he's not massively influenced games, and there are times where his decision-making isn't fantastic. But it's when he's not there as you realise how like that's the exact kind of profile of player, a maverick player, someone who can get up and down, not so get up and down the pitch, but like someone who can make something happen out of nothing, or like take the lead, take the game by the skin of teeth and make something happen. That's exactly what we needed against Everton, and also against Everton, and that's exactly what we didn't have. So I do think Cunha is a case of we miss him when he's not there, and then maybe don't appreciate him as much when he is there, because it makes our left-hand side so weak. And I do think if we were to get a better attacking left wing-back, someone more decisive at left wing-back alongside Cunha, that would balance out our attack so much more. That would help Šeško know what he's doing, obviously when once his knee's back from injury. It would just help him so much more. Amorim wants this, Amorim wants that. I want a new manager. Yeah, look, I cannot blame anyone who wants a new manager. And to be perfectly honest, as I said before earlier in the stream, if you didn't hear it, my view on Amorim is that it just won't work long term. The game against Everton was tragic. Why we kept 3 centre-backs on the pitch and kept them there was ridiculous. I didn't understand it. What I even thought, it's like not even necessarily change the positions of where people were. But like, I don't get why Mainu came on and then Yoro didn't come off. Because Yoro ended up in the area, right? He was about 10 metres back from the penalty area. And he was just passing it sideways, passing it here, passing it sideways. That's where you want someone like Kobbie Mainoo. You want Bruno Fernandes further in but you want Bruno Fernandes in the mixer, in the middle of it all, right? And then you want someone like Kobbie Mainoo on the edge of the area who can pick the right pass. He can link with someone. He can do something. He can hit it over the top. That's where Mainoo is so good, in these tight spaces on the edge of the box. But it was Lenny Yoro who ended up there, and it was Luke Shaw that was there. So what I didn't understand within that game was that why Yoro didn't come off. And then, yes, I'm not necessarily saying that Mainoo then plays centre-back, but it's that Mainoo then occupies the space that Yoro kept finding himself in. Just play with 2 centre-backs. Like, you're not going to, like Amorim, you're not going to pass away if it doesn't happen. That's what I found mad. Yeah, correct, wasted a spare, that's what user says. He just wasted his spare player. So it ended up being that, yes, they had 10 men, but it meant actually they were playing man-to-man anyway, even with 10 men, because we had an extra player on the halfway line. So effectively, we gave ourselves 10 men. We didn't use that advantage. That's what I found mad. But I feel like, yeah, play Bruno strikers. I'm just reading something. If you guys want to get involved in your comments, let me know what you think. Please do. Please join the conversation. But yeah, Bruno Fernandes. I don't know if you guys have seen that what Sen Lemons is talking about on the most recent podcast, United Inside Carrington podcast. He was asked who's the best finisher at the club, and he said Bruno Fernandes. And then I saw a reply to one of our United District tweets where Bruno Fernandes, bar the goalkeeper, he was playing quarterback. He was the furthest man back on the pitch. Like, how are you 1-0 down against 10 men, and the person who your own players are saying is the best finisher at the club, and he is the only one behind the halfway line when you need a goal? Like, I know Bruno Fernandes has a free roll where he goes and collects the ball, and then he goes and picks it up, brings it here, goes somewhere else, and all that. I understand that he's someone who can do that, because he will just take control of the game and try and make something happen. But I found it crazy. How is the best finisher at the club the one who's furthest back? He could not have been further from the goal. He genuinely couldn't have been further from the goal if he tried. And that's down to Amorim. Jacob says exactly, he only knows one system, which is SHIT. He doesn't react to all the changes. Yeah. It was I sometimes Amorim gets it right. And when he gets it right, he gets it really, really right, and it's fantastic. But when he gets it wrong, it's like he's got a blind spot. It's fully like he's got a complete blind spot. And adverts. Football Cartoon says we need a separate / dedicated training facility for every aspect of football: dribbling, tackling, passing, shooting, pressing. If one player needs to train, he can train alone. Nah, I don't agree with that. I just feel like Amorim, I don't know if Solskjaer, when Solskjaer was at the club, I wasn't a massive fan of the report stating that that he didn't really take training. It was McKenna and Michael Carrick, both who have gone on obviously to do good things with Middlesbrough and Ipswich so far. I feel like Ole may have been a little too hands-off, but then Amorim potentially a little too hands-on. So the reports are that, like, obviously when he initially came out, I praised it, but now I think back to it, it's like he will pause a game and then drag someone 3 feet the other way and go, this is where you should be. Maybe that's a bit too rigid. Like, maybe that's a little bit too, like, that's stifling the instinct of players. The players we have, right? Some of the players we've got, Bruno Fernandes. We've got, I'd even put Luke Shaw in that category. Brian Mbeumo, Ahmad, Cunha. These are players who play best to their instincts because their instincts are fantastic. Not like elite players play to their instincts. To a certain extent, like Cunha, for example. Like I talk about Cunha a lot because I think he's absolutely amazing. He's absolutely fantastic. And I feel like Cunha is one of the reasons I like him so much is because his instincts are almost, not all the time, obviously, but almost always correct. I feel like he doesn't necessarily know what he's going to do in the moment, but he just does something because almost subconsciously he knows what's the best thing to do with the ball, like when to do the skill move, when to pass, when to, like all of this, all of that. And maybe there's a certain extent of if our system is too reliant on being in the exact place, in the exact right moment, here and there, and be able to react to things, then players aren't playing to their instincts. Šeško is also, to be fair, another one. Like, because he's good with the ball at his feet. It may be a case of he's thinking too much. Like Højlund thought too much almost. It was too much active thinking about where shall I go, what shall I do, where shall I run, rather than just trusting your instinct and just playing the game. And that might be a problem that we're seeing with in this Ruben Amorim squad. User says the left wing area was too crowded versus Everton, getting each other's way in the end. That I agree with as well. That's what I mean about players. So like the fullbacks being wing backs, they take too long. Like Dorgu's decision making just wasn't there. Dallow's decision making. To be fair, Dallow, his decision making in terms of what he wants to do is good, but then to a certain extent he then can't actually pull it off. Is the problem with Dallow? Like he knows when the ball should be going in. He knows when's the best time to make the overlap, when's the best time to make the pass, when's the best time to come inside. But then once he actually does it, he doesn't do it too well a lot of the time. So therefore, it becomes a case of Dallow looks like he's got the right idea, but he just can't execute it. And yeah, so I do, back to just what we're talking about in terms of United looking to bolster options with new wing backs. Left wing back, 100% bring. Right wing back, yeah, I think we also need another right wing back because, okay, look, I'm of the assumption, and it's slightly just hoping that it happens, but that we get back into European football next season, right? Be that Conference League, be that Europa League, be that Champions League football. So there will be another 10, 15 games. So obviously the 8 league games, plus hopefully knockout stages, getting into how far you go, depending on what league it is. Plus, obviously, hopefully going through in the Carabao Cup. And then the FA Cup, that's an extra 15 games. We can't have Ahmad playing wing-back for 55 games a season because there's going to be times where Mbeumo might need a rest and Ahmad plays up front or there's injuries. And I don't like Maz at wing-back. Dallow and Mazraoui, both right wing-backs, can't hack it. So we need two, realistically. That's why that's what I find interesting on the report. It didn't say back in with a left wing-back. It doesn't say right wing-back. It just says wing-backs. Like they're looking at wing-back as places. So I do think there will be two mids, going back to obviously the 7-man list he talked about at the beginning of the show. If you missed it, obviously you can go back and watch it after the show's finished. 7-man list for midfield. I think 2 of them will come in. No, maybe not 2 of those 7 names, but there will be a primary big money midfielder who I'm hoping is Elliot Anderson, plus a secondary option to come in because I don't see both Casemiro and Ugarte being here next summer. One of them's going. Be that we sell Ugarte and give Casemiro a lower contract, or we let Casemiro run off and then potentially even let Ugarte go still, or just say Ugarte, right, your 5th choice, 6th choice is what it is. And then also 2 wing-backs. Because we're going to need an attacking signing as well. Because if we do get back into Europe, we signed 3 attackers in the summer, but we let go of 5. Admittedly, one of them was Jadon Sancho, who's not played in a while for us anyway. But we let go of 5 attacking players last summer, or either on loan or sold, or like will be sold in the coming summer. So we still need an extra attacking player. Potentially that could be like someone to play behind the striker, or that could be a new striker himself. So it could end up you've got 2 new midfielders, obviously defensive midfielders, most likely, or like number 8s, number 6s. 2 new wing backs, one on the right, one on the left, and then a new attacking player. That's then the 5 extra players. Should we have pushed Shaw to left wing back and have the spare man in midfield? What's the point in bringing Daley? Yeah, no, I agree with that. I want to see Shaw given a start at wing back. Shaw says it. Remember, he said it in the summer, beginning of or in August. He said, "I think my best position is wing back," and I agree with him. Like, as much as Luke Shaw is so frustrating to talk about because it's a player he could have been kind of thing, I do really think that Luke Shaw at wing back, he'd be fantastic. Some of the crosses he was putting in when we were playing at Everton were fantastic. Like, he's the one player, the one fullback I would trust as a wing back of being, right, I've got the ball on my feet, I'm going to whip this ball in. I'm going to find Xerxes' head, I'm going to find Šeško's head, I'm going to find Amador and Bumo at the back post. I would, if we're not signing a wing back in January, which I doubt. So, like, these are the wing backs we have. We'll sign new ones in the summer. This is what got to the end of the season. I do want to see Shaw. But even if it's, like, putting there for the first half, see how it goes, or just, like, second half of the game, take Dorgu or Dallo off, whoever's playing at left wing back, and then put Lisandro Martinez at left back and put Shaw at wing back. Like, our best back five, if you count our midfield three, defensive three, and then the two wing backs, is probably Shaw, Martinez, De Ligt, and then Maguire or Yoro, depending on Yoro's form, and then Ahmad. Like, Ahmad and Shaw, that's not a bad wing back pairing. That really isn't. It's just that everything after that is terrible, which is why we need two new wing backs. But looking ahead to the game against Crystal Palace, I don't know when the last time was we played Crystal Palace, at midday. It's a midday kickoff on a Sunday. If you guys can correct me, let me know if you know when it is. But I can't think of the last time I know there's a 12:30 kickoffs, but literally midday kickoff. That's mental. The lineup's coming out at 10:45 in the morning. I'll barely be awake when they come out. Actually, I've got to wake up early then to do work for United District. But game against Crystal Palace, I remember I went through our run, our next 10 games with Abby during the international break. So post Spurs. And I did say we'd beat Everton. We didn't. But I said Crystal Palace was probably one of our only losses. And I still think that Crystal Palace away, I say they're in fifth, right? They're fifth at the moment, but they are 2 points ahead of us. I feel like there's a bit of a chance we can do something, but I'm not massively confident. But then this is the kind of game that therefore we'll then do really well in. Like, I wasn't confident against Liverpool, wasn't confident against Brighton, wasn't confident against Sunderland, and we won all of those games. Then I was confident against Forest, we drew. Was kind of confident against Spurs, we drew. Very confident against Everton, we lost. So maybe the games that I have no confidence in might be the ones we win. But Selhurst Park is going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. Palace have had a very good start to the season. They're obviously playing incredibly good football. It'll be very man for man. And I'm a little bit worried about if it is man for man, that some of our players could get overpowered. Like, I would have liked to see Harry Maguire. I don't know if he's going to be fit because he obviously didn't make the bench for the Everton game, and he does seem to be going through a series of injuries at the moment. Well, like every 4 or 5 games, he's out for 2. I would have liked to see him start because that may have been a better battle with him in the middle against Mateta, with then like De Ligt and Shaw on either side because of the strength that they've got. Because I'm not overly sure about Yoro. But the other option we have is obviously if Maguire isn't available, I don't think I want Yoro to start. I think Yoro's fantastic, but obviously he's had a very mixed start to the season. I would rather he's dropped with Mazwari going back to right centre back. Because Cunha hopefully is back. His head injury was precautionary. So okay, let's build before we wrap up. Let's build my starting 11. Obviously, Sen Lamon's in goal, right? He suffered his first loss, and there is the chance that maybe he could have saved the shot against Everton. But Lowell Maguire against Mateta, are you sure about that? Well, the thing is, I think we'll play kind of low. Like, this is on the assumption that we're not going to be playing a really, really high line. So it will be more about physically the physical battle against Mateta, because I don't think we'd be given loads of space in behind. But Maguire, like that's what Maguire's good at. That's what he's still good at. But De Ligt, obviously, I think has been one of the best centre backs this season. He's been absolutely phenomenal. So obviously, him playing against Mateta, I'm touch wood, not massively worried about. But I'd go Sen Lamon's in goal, back 3, Luke Shaw in the middle. If Maguire's not available, De Ligt in the middle. So Luke Shaw on the left, Maguire in the middle. De Ligt in the middle, and then Mazwari as the right centre back. And then you've got wing backs. I'd still go Dorgu. Like, because in an ideal world, Lisandro Martinez comes back and he's centre back, and then Luke Shaw's left wing back. But I just don't think it's going to happen, so there's no point in me trying to predict that. I still think Dorgu on the left. I'd still rather Dorgu, because at least Dorgu's got good recovery pace, if like we're under the cosh a bit. Against like Ismail Assar. And then on the right wing back, then Ahmad, obviously. And then the middle 2, we've then got Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes. With the front 3. Actually, no, I'm changing my mind. I would want to see, potentially, Mbumo on the left, Cunha up front if Šeško's not around, and Bruno Fernandes on the right, with then Kobbie Mainoo and Casemiro on the left. That is me hoping. because when Mbeumo and Ahmad go to AFCON, I want to see Bruno move. So as I was talking about before, Bruno being closer to that goal, closer to the penalty area. The closer he is to the box, the better he is at football, in my opinion. Like, Bruno's just so damn good in the box that it would be looking fantastic if Bruno went higher up, played on the right-hand side, maybe moved Mbeumo to the left and Cunha through the middle rather than Xerxes back. Because I just don't think Palace away is the right game for Joshua Xerxes. So if we then have maybe Kobbie Mainoo in midfield alongside Casemiro, maybe not for the Palace game, Palace because this is so hard, but I do want to see that happen during AFCON. Like, if, let's say, Šeško comes back when AFCON happens, if we then have a front three of Cunha, Šeško and Bruno Fernandes, with Kobbie Mainoo and Casemiro behind them in the midfield too, I would like to see that. Footy Cartoon says, if Maguire plays, we need to sit deep to cover him, then no counter-attack because everyone will sit back. But this is what I mean. Like, if we were to play Maguire, it would be like that, and he would be good at that. But I don't think Maguire's going to be back anyway, because if it's a hamstring problem and he was unavailable to place against Everton, which was literally like 3 days ago, I don't see how he'd then recover to then start against Crystal Palace away. So I doubt Maguire will be starting. But it's... I think Palace will be favourites this game, but I can see us pulling off... Like, it can work, because when it does work and when we're good and when we click, especially when Cunha's on the pitch, we play well. We do sometimes play well, but it's going to be a scrappy game. We're going to need luck to get through it. And score predictions-wise, I'm probably going to go with a... My head says something like a 2-1 Palace, but I'm going to say 2-2. It's all dependent on Cunha being back and us actually not being just so tragic in front of goal. Because against Everton, we had 21 shots, 7 on target. 21 shots, 7 shots on target, and we couldn't score any of them because Pickford scored some good goals. And it was so irritating because finally, after Šeško got injured, we played a game that would have suited Šeško so much. The number of aerial balls we had in the air, we were actually finding our striker. So many of the crosses we've been putting in the last 3 months have sailed well over Šeško's head. They've gone to the back post. Now, as soon as Šeško's out and we put Xerxes up front, we're crossing it properly. It did irritate me, but I wouldn't start Xerxes against Palace. I just don't think it'll be the game for him. If we do sit a bit deeper, if we do need to counter a bit, I want Cunha there. I want people I think Xerxes good, and he's good when he's deeper, but we're going to need people up front. We're going to need people kind of get at their back three a bit. That's the only way I think it will work. But yeah, so I don't know what you guys think. If you guys, got score predictions or anything, then let me know in the comments. What do you think? What are the starting 11s you think? Who are the wing backs you think we should sign? Who are the midfielders that you want us to bring in? But remember, yeah, so like, subscribe, comment. Obviously, my name is Dylan. Been your host today on What the Devil. Next week, hopefully, Flex should be back as well to cover, obviously, what's going on in December and all the games coming up and everything apart from that. But apart from that, make sure to follow everything. My links are in the description, and I will see you next Thursday.